world's longest quiet game, the story of Elizabeth and Zachariah.
Oh, I can't do it any longer.
Have you ever played the quiet game? It's hard to sit quiet for 2 seconds, maybe even 2 minutes, isn't it? How about 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Can you imagine going for 9 months and not saying anything at all? That's 394,200 minutes. Not even the best quiet game champion can do that. This story today is about a priest in the temple who was called Zachariah, and he did just that.
Now, do you remember from yesterday what the angel said to Zachariah? That's right. He said, "Don't be afraid, God is coming to stay, and your baby boy will prepare the way."
And do you remember how Zachariah told his wife Elizabeth about that? Well, he didn't really tell her. He wrote it out on something called a tablet. It's not like an iPad or a Kindle or something that you might have today. Back then, a tablet was usually a piece of wood covered in wax that you wrote on with a small piece of wood shaped like a pencil.
I wonder why you think Zachariah was writing on a tablet? Well, when the angel told Zachariah that he was going to be a dad, Zachariah didn't believe him. He was really very shocked because Zachariah thought that God hadn't spoken to him for quite some time. And anyway, he knew that he and Elizabeth were far too old to be parents.
Now, as you can imagine, the angel was a little upset at Zachariah not believing him. So he said, "A proof of what I say is true, and actually because you don't believe me, you will not be able to talk at all until your baby boy is born. Oh, you'll still have your mouth and your tongue and your teeth, but when you open your mouth to speak, no words will come out. Try that."
And see how hard it is. Now, sure enough, when Zachariah walked out of the temple, although he tried, he just couldn't say a word. And he started waving his hands around and pointing to his mouth. And the people outside knew that something very special had happened inside that temple. And we know it had, because you see, God was teaching Zachariah to listen to him and to trust him. And throughout all those 9 months, God was with Zachariah, even when it was hard, even when he couldn't speak, even when people started to say that he was never going to speak again. God was with Zachariah.
After a while, Elizabeth and Zachariah had their baby, and God's promise was fulfilled. When the baby was taken to the temple for the first time, the people wanted to call him Zachariah, after his family. But Elizabeth, the baby's mother, said no, his name is to be John. The people said, "Why John? You don't have anyone in your family called John." They turned to Zachariah for an answer. Zachariah simply wrote on his tablet, "Name this baby John." God had told him to call the baby John, and this time Zachariah listened.
Now, the next thing you know, Zachariah started to whisper, and then he started to talk, and then he started to sing.
Did they give him the tablet back?
No, they didn't. What the Bible's really saying was that Zachariah could hardly contain his excitement because God's promise was fulfilled. He now had a baby son and he could speak again.
So what do you really need to remember about today's Advent story?
Well, I think we can say it like this. God had a plan, he was making a way to make things right to come and stay. So why don't you all try saying that at home? God had a plan, he was making a way to make things right to come and stay.